When we think of the Middle Ages, what comes to mind? For most of us, it's probably European knights, castles, and maybe a king or two. But that's only half the story. While Europe was forging its identity through fire and steel, vast and powerful empires were flourishing across Asia, creating a world rich with innovation, art, and complex societies. Today, we are going on a journey to compare these two incredible continents during one of history's most fascinating periods. How did they build their nations, their armies, and their futures? Let's find out. In medieval Europe, the fall of the Roman Empire left a power vacuum. What emerged was a fragmented system known as feudalism. Kings granted land to powerful nobles, who in turn granted land to lesser lords, all the way down to the serfs who worked the fields. This created a patchwork of kingdoms, duchies, and city-states like the Holy Roman Empire, France, and England. Allegiances were personal and often shifted. In contrast, Asia saw the rise and continuation of massive centralized empires. In China, dynasties like the Tang and Song established sophisticated bureaucracies based on merit, using civil service exams to select officials. In the Middle East, the Islamic caliphates, such as the Abbasids, created a vast state that unified diverse peoples under a single administration and legal system. While Europe was a mosaic of local powers, Asia was often dominated by colossal unified empires. This difference in state building directly impacted infrastructure. European infrastructure development was often localized. Lords and monasteries would build roads, bridges, and mills, primarily for their own economic and military benefit. The old Roman road network fell into disrepair, making long-distance travel difficult. In Asia, however, imperial power drove massive public works. The Grand Canal in China, extended by the Sui and Tang dynasties, was a marvel of engineering, connecting the north and south and enabling the transport of grain and goods on an unprecedented scale. Similarly, the Islamic world maintained and expanded ancient road networks, creating the famous Silk Road and other trade routes, complete with caravanserais or roadside inns to support merchants and travelers across thousands of miles. When it came to military might, the archetypes were different as well. The iconic European warrior was the heavily armored knight on horseback, a product of the feudal system. Warfare was often about sieges of stone castles and pitched battles between aristocratic heavy cavalry. Armies were typically smaller, raised by nobles for specific campaigns. In Asia, the scale was often much larger. The Chinese empires fielded massive, professionally trained armies, utilizing advanced strategies from texts like Sun Tzu's The Art of War. They pioneered the use of gunpowder, developing early cannons, rockets, and bombs. Further west, the Mongol armies, under leaders like Genghis Khan, revolutionized warfare with their highly disciplined horse archers, whose mobility and tactics allowed them to build the largest contiguous land empire in history. This era was also a golden age for science and art, but the centers of innovation were often in different places. In early medieval Europe, scientific knowledge was largely preserved in monasteries with limited new discovery. It was the Islamic world that became the global center for learning. Scholars in Baghdad's House of Wisdom translated and built upon Greek, Indian, and Persian knowledge, making huge advances in mathematics with the development of algebra, in astronomy with incredibly accurate observatories, and in medicine with figures like Avicenna, whose work was used in Europe for centuries. In China, the four great inventions, the compass, gunpowder, papermaking, and printing, would eventually change the entire world. European art was largely religious, with Gothic cathedrals reaching for the heavens. Asian art was incredibly diverse, from intricate Islamic geometric patterns and calligraphy to the serene and beautiful landscape paintings of the Song dynasty in China. So, how did ordinary people live? In Europe, the vast majority were serfs, tied to the land and serving a local lord. Their lives revolved around the agricultural seasons, the local church, and village traditions. Social mobility was extremely limited. Life was hard, and the world was small. In the great empires of Asia, life was different. While peasants also formed the backbone of society, the presence of enormous cities like Baghdad, Constantinople, or Chang'an offered more opportunities. These were bustling multicultural hubs of trade and craft. A person could be a merchant, an artisan, a scholar, or a government official. While a rigid social hierarchy existed, systems like the Chinese civil service exams offered a potential, albeit difficult, path for a commoner to rise in status based on talent. Daily life and traditions were deeply shaped by religion. In Europe, Christianity was the unifying cultural force. The church calendar dictated holidays. Rituals like baptism and marriage marked life's key moments, and pilgrimages to holy sites were a major undertaking. Local folk traditions and festivals, often with pre-Christian roots, were woven into daily life. In Asia, a vast array of beliefs coexisted. Islam shaped every aspect of life in the caliphates, from daily prayers to law and commerce. In India, Hinduism and Buddhism provided spiritual guidance and a social framework through the caste system. In China, Confucianism provided a moral and social philosophy, while Buddhism and Taoism offered spiritual paths. These traditions gave birth to unique festivals, culinary practices, and family structures that defined communities. Of course, the Middle Ages were also a time of conflict. Europe was racked by near-constant warfare. The 100 Years' War between England and France and the Crusades, which sent European knights to the Middle East, are just two examples. These wars were brutal, but also spurred developments in military technology and state building. Asia experienced epic conflicts on an even grander scale. The Mongol conquests were a storm that redrew the map of the continent, toppling empires from China to Persia. In India, dynasties clashed for control of the subcontinent. The Byzantine Empire, straddling Europe and Asia, fought for its very survival against numerous foes, most notably the rising Islamic powers, and later, the Ottoman Turks, culminating in the fall of Constantinople in 1453. An event that many historians use to mark the end of the Middle Ages. At the top of these societies were the kings and emperors. European monarchs, like Richard the Lionheart of England or Louis IX of France, were often seen as first among equals, their power constantly checked by powerful nobles and the church. Their legitimacy was based on heredity and divine right, but their actual control could be surprisingly fragile. In contrast, Asian rulers often held a more absolute form of power. The Emperor of China was the Son of Heaven, a cosmic link between the divine and the mortal world, with a mandate to rule all under heaven. The Caliph was not just a political leader, but the successor to the Prophet, with religious authority over the entire Muslim community. These titles conveyed a level of authority and a scope of responsibility far beyond that of most European kings. So as we look back, we see not one dark age, but a world of incredible diversity and dynamism. While Europe was rebuilding and finding its footing, civilizations in Asia were reaching incredible heights of power, culture, and knowledge. They were two different worlds, developing on parallel but occasionally intersecting paths. Each faced unique challenges and created unique solutions, leaving behind legacies that continue to shape our world today. The story of the medieval period isn't just one of knights and castles, it's a truly global story of empires, ideas, and the enduring human spirit. Thanks so much for joining me on this historical journey today. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss our next adventure into the past. See you next time.